Nexus Prime was bigger than any building on Earth. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds formed inside it. Lights from 1,000 alien worlds flickered across walls made of living crystal. Representatives from 12 mighty empires sat in floating chairs, their strange bodies wrapped in robes of power and pride. Admiral Kim Do-won stood alone on the speaking platform. He was 63 years old. His hair had turned gray from years of service. His uniform was simple and clean, decorated with medals from wars most humans had already forgotten. Behind him, visible through the massive windows, floated Earth's fleet. 30 ships. Small ships. Old ships. Ships that looked like toys compared to the massive warships of the alien empires. Do-won cleared his throat and spoke into the translator device. His words echoed through the hall in 100 different languages. "Honored members of the Galactic Assembly," he said, keeping his voice steady and respectful. "I come before you as the representative of the United Earth Alliance. Humanity requests formal membership in this assembly. We wish to trade. We wish to learn. We wish to stand beside you as equals in this vast universe." Silence filled the hall for a moment. Then came a sound that Do-won had not expected. Laughter. It started from the Dominion section, where crystalline beings sat in chairs made of frozen light. Their leader, High Sovereign Vex, rose from his seat. His body was tall and thin, made of something that looked like blue glass filled with swirling storms. When he moved, he made a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. "Honored members," Vex said, his voice dripping with amusement. "Did you hear this creature? This soft pink water-filled thing from a tiny mud ball wants to stand beside us as equals." More laughter spread through the hall. Other alien representatives joined in. Some made clicking sounds. Others vibrated in what seemed to be their version of mockery. Vex waved one of his crystal arms, and a holographic display appeared above the assembly. It showed Earth's fleet in detail. Every scratch on the hull. Every outdated weapon system. Every primitive engine. "Look at this," Vex continued. "These humans crawl out of their wet little world with ships held together by hope and rust. Their largest vessel is smaller than my personal transport. Their weapons could not scratch the paint on a Dominion cargo hauler." Admiral Do-won stood still. His face showed nothing, but his daughter, Commander Kim Yuna, watched from the observation deck above. She saw something in her father's eyes, something that the aliens, in all their pride, completely missed. It was not shame. It was patience. "The Dominion has conquered 140 worlds," Vex declared proudly. "The Kreth Collective has enslaved 60 species. The Void Walkers have burned stars themselves. And these humans, who have barely left their own solar system, dare to ask for a seat among gods?" A representative from the Kreth Collective, a being that looked like a spider made of smoke and hate, spoke next. "I say we designate them as a protected primitive species. Let them play in their little corner of space until they evolve into something worth noticing." The vote was quick, unanimous. Earth was denied membership. Humanity was officially classified as a primitive species, too weak and too small to matter in galactic affairs. Admiral Do-won bowed his head politely. "I thank the Assembly for its time," he said quietly. Then he turned and walked out of the great hall, his boots echoing on the crystal floor. No one noticed the small smile on his face. Back on the command ship, Soul's Pride, Commander Yuna waited for her father in the briefing room. The other officers stood around the table, their faces heavy with anger and shame. Lieutenant Park Min-ho, the youngest officer on staff, slammed his fist against the wall. "They laughed at us," Min-ho said, his voice shaking. "They treated us like insects. Like nothing." Admiral Do-won entered the room. Everyone snapped to attention. He waved them down and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. They did laugh, he agreed. They saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Commander Yuna stepped forward. Father, what do you mean? Do-hwan turned to face his crew. His eyes were calm, but there was fire underneath. Fire that had been burning for a very long time. 400 years ago, he began. Humanity detected the first signals from alien civilizations. We listened. We learned. We discovered that the galaxy was not a place of friendship and cooperation. It was a place of predators and prey. The strong took what they wanted. The weak disappeared. He pressed a button on the table. A star map appeared, showing the Dominion's territory. 140 conquered worlds. Millions of enslaved beings. Earth's leaders made a decision, Do-hwan continued. They decided that humanity would not announce itself until we were ready. Until we had built something that could not be laughed at. Something that could not be conquered. Lieutenant Minho frowned. But Admiral, we only have 30 ships. The Dominion has thousands. Do-hwan smiled. It was the same smile he had worn in the assembly hall. Those 30 ships are what we show the galaxy. They are old. They are weak. They are meant to be mocked. He paused. They are not the real fleet. The room went silent. Commander Yuna felt her heart beating faster. Father, she whispered. What are you saying? Admiral Do-hwan looked at his daughter, at his crew, at the brave men and women who had suffered humiliation for humanity's sake. Deep beneath the ice of Europa, there are shipyards. Inside hollowed-out asteroids, there are factories. On the dark side of the moon, there are weapons platforms. In the cold reaches of the Ur cloud, there are things sleeping in the dark. His voice dropped low. Things that have been sleeping for 200 years, waiting, growing, preparing. He turned back to the window. The aliens saw our public fleet and laughed. Good. Let them laugh. Let them think we are weak. Let them show us their true faces. His hands clasped behind his back. When the time comes, they will see what humanity has really built. And they will not laugh then. Commander Yuna stared at her father. She had served under him for 15 years. She thought she knew everything about Earth's military. She was wrong. How many ships? She asked. Admiral Do-hwan did not answer immediately. He watched a Dominion battlecruiser pass by the window, massive and terrible. Its crew probably still laughing about the primitive humans. Enough, he finally said. Enough to make them remember this day. Enough to make them regret every single laugh. The Soul's Pride turned toward home, carrying its small crew through the mocking stars. Behind them, the Dominion celebrated another weak species put in its place. They had no idea what was coming. 6 months passed since the humiliation at Nexus Prime. Life continued on Earth and its colonies. People worked. Children went to school. Farmers grew crops on Mars under giant glass domes. Miners dug ice on Europa. Humanity went about its business, quiet and small. Just another primitive species in a galaxy that did not care about them. Then the Dominion came. Governor Park Ji-soo was drinking her morning tea when the alarm started, screaming. She dropped her cup and ran to the command center of Mars Colony. Her staff was already there, their faces white with fear. Report, she ordered, her voice sharp. A young officer named Baek Jin-ho pointed at the main screen with a trembling hand. 500 ships, Governor. Dominion warships. They just appeared at the edge of our sensor range. They are heading straight for us. Ji-soo felt her stomach drop. 500 ships. Mars had a defense force of exactly 12 patrol boats. They were meant to chase away pirates, not fight a galactic empire. The communication system crackled. A voice filled the room. It was High Sovereign Vex, and he sounded very pleased with himself. Attention, human colony. This is High Sovereign Vex of the Dominion Empire. Your species has been evaluated and found suitable for labor operations. You will surrender your world and your people to Dominion control. You have 48 hours to comply. If you refuse, we will begin pacification procedures. The transmission ended. The room was silent, except for the soft crying of a junior officer in the corner. Governor Jesu straightened her back. She was 51 years old. She had built this colony from nothing. She had watched children born under the red Martian sky. She would not let them become slaves. Send a message to Earth, she said. Priority 1. Tell them what is happening. Tell them we need help. On Earth, the World Council gathered in emergency session within the hour. Presidents and prime ministers shouted at each other across the table. Military advisors showed charts and graphs that all said the same thing. Humanity was doomed. We have 30 ships, one general said, his voice hollow. Analysis suggests we can survive for 11 minutes against the Dominion fleet. Maybe 12 if we are lucky. The council members looked at each other. Some were crying. Some were praying. Some were already planning how to surrender with the least amount of suffering. Then a door opened at the back of the room. A man walked in. He was old, perhaps 70, with white hair and a face full of deep wrinkles. He wore a simple military uniform with no decorations. Most council members had never seen him before. Those who could not remember his name. Who are you? The council president demanded. The old man walked slowly to the front of the room. He moved like someone who had been waiting a very long time for this moment. My name is Fleet Admiral Choi Sunwoo, he said. His voice was quiet but somehow filled the entire room. I have served in the shadows for 40 years, preparing for a day like this. The council president frowned. Fleet Admiral? I know every admiral in our fleet. I have never heard of you. Sunwoo smiled. It was a tired smile. The smile of a man who had carried secrets heavy enough to break mountains. You know the public fleet, he said. You do not know the real one. He pulled a small device from his pocket. It looked old and worn, like something that had been waiting in a drawer for decades. Counselors, Sunwoo continued, I am about to transmit a code to 17 locations across our solar system. These locations contain assets that have been building, growing, and waiting since before most of you were born. Assets that the galaxy does not know about. Assets that we have hidden from alien eyes for 200 years. He pressed a button on the device. Across the solar system, things began to wake up. On Europa, deep beneath the ice, machines that had been silent for decades powered on. Lights flickered in tunnels that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Massive doors began to open in the asteroid belt. Rocks that had floated quietly for centuries started to move. Their surfaces cracked and split, revealing metal underneath. Engines that had never fired began to glow. On the dark side of Luna, mountains broke apart. What had looked like craters were actually hangar doors. Ships began to rise from underground bases that no satellite had ever detected in the Oort cloud. At the very edge of the solar system, shapes that had been sleeping in the cold and dark started to drift toward the sun. They were big, very big, and they were not happy about being woken up. Lieutenant Park Min-ho sat at his sensor station on the Soul's Pride, which was docked at Earth's main space station. He was running routine checks when his screen went crazy. What the? He whispered. Contacts were appearing everywhere. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. His equipment must be broken. There was no way this was real. He ran a diagnostic. The equipment was fine. He switched to a different sensor array. Same result. His hands started to shake. He opened a channel to the bridge. Captain, he said, his voice cracking. I am reading new contacts. Lots of them. How many? The captain asked. Min-ho stared at his screen. Numbers kept climbing. His eyes were wet, but he was not sure if it was from fear or from something else entirely. "Sir, I am reading over 8,000 warship signatures, and they are still appearing." The bridge went silent. Back in the World Council chamber, Fleet Admiral Sun Wu watched the same data on the main screen. The counselors stared with their mouths open. Some had fallen out of their chairs. One had fainted completely. 200 years ago, Sun Wu explained calmly, our ancestors knew that humanity would face this moment. They knew we would meet aliens who saw us as prey. So they built, in secret, in silence, in places no one would ever think to look. He pointed at the screen, where thousands of ship markers were now forming into fleet formations. Those 30 ships you know about? They are the mask we wear, the face we show to a hostile galaxy. His voice grew stronger. These ships, the ones waking up right now, they are the truth. They are what humanity really is. Admiral Kim Do-hwan entered the chamber, still wearing his uniform from the Nexus Prime mission. He walked to Sun Wu's side and saluted. "The true fleet is awake, sir," Do-hwan reported. "All ships are reporting ready. Crews are aboard. Weapons are charged." Sun Wu nodded slowly. "Then let us go save Mars." He turned to the stunned council. "Counselors, I suggest you watch your screens. You are about to see what your taxes have really been paying for." In orbit around Mars, High Sovereign Vex received a strange report from his sensor officers. They were detecting unusual readings from the direction of Earth. Large readings. Many readings. Vex dismissed it as equipment malfunction. These primitive humans had 30 ships. What could they possibly do? He was about to find out. The Dominion fleet hung in space above Mars like a cloud of death. 500 warships, each one bristling with weapons that had burned cities and cracked continents on 100 different worlds. High Sovereign Vex sat in his command throne, watching the red planet below with hungry eyes. "How much time remains?" he asked his officers. 36 hours until the deadline, High Sovereign, one replied. "The humans have not responded to our demands." Vex made a sound like grinding glass. It was his version of a laugh. "Of course they have not. They are probably still crying, perhaps arguing about how to surrender with dignity." He waved a crystalline hand. "It does not matter. When the deadline passes, we will begin harvesting. Human labor will serve the Dominion well." A sensor officer suddenly made a confused noise. "High Sovereign, I am detecting unusual readings from the direction of their home planet." "Unusual how?" "Many contacts, my lord." "Very many, but that is impossible. Our intelligence says they only have 30 ships." Vex turned his attention to the sensor display. The officer was right. There were contacts appearing on the edge of the system. Lots of them. But these must be sensor ghosts, echoes from some natural phenomenon. No primitive species could hide such numbers. Then space itself seemed to tear open. Fold space portals. The kind that only the most advanced civilizations could create. Burst into existence near Mars. They were massive, each one large enough to swallow a moon. And from these portals came ships. Not 30 ships. Not 100 ships. Thousands of ships. They poured out of fold space like a river of black steel. Dreadnoughts 12 kilometers long, their hulls covered in weapons that pulsed with strange energy. Carriers that released swarms of fighters, each swarm moving like a single living creature. Battlecruisers with guns that crackled with power that Dominion scientists had only theorized about. And behind them, siege platforms the size of small moons, dark shapes that blotted out the stars. Vex rose from his throne. His crystalline body was flickering with colors that his officers had never seen before. It took them a moment to realize what those colors meant. Fear. Pure fear. "That is impossible," he whispered. "That is impossible." On the bridge of the Eternal Soul, the flagship of humanity's true fleet, Admiral Kim Do-won stood at the command station. His daughter Yuna stood beside him, her eyes wide as she looked at the tactical display. 8,000 human warships now faced the Dominion fleet. The enemy was outnumbered 16-1. "Open a channel to all frequencies," Do-hwan ordered. His voice was calm and steady. "Channel open, Admiral." Do-hwan looked at the screen showing High Sovereign Vex's fleet. 6 months ago, this alien had laughed at him, had called him a creature from a mudball, had dismissed humanity as worthless primitives. Now it was time to correct that mistake. "This is Admiral Kim Do-hwan of the United Earth Alliance to the Dominion Fleet," he said. His words were broadcast across all channels, reaching every ship, every station, every world that was listening. 6 months ago, you asked where our dreadnoughts were. You asked about our heavy weapons. You looked at our public fleet and you laughed. He paused, letting the words sink in. "We let you laugh. We needed to see your true face. We needed to know who would threaten our children, who would try to enslave our people, who would look at humanity and see nothing but prey." On the Dominion command ship, Vex was shouting at his officers. "Fire! Fire everything! Destroy them!" But the Dominion officers hesitated. Their hands shook over their controls. They had spent their careers conquering weaker species, burning defenseless worlds. They had never faced an enemy that made them feel small. Admiral Do-hwan continued his broadcast. "For 400 years, we have watched the galaxy. We have seen how the strong treat the weak. We have learned that this universe respects only one thing: power. So we built power. In secret, in silence, in places you would never think to look." Commander Choi Yoonji, the weapons officer aboard Eternal Soul, reported from her station. "All weapons charged, Admiral. Targeting solutions locked on enemy fleet." Do-hwan nodded but held up his hand. "Not yet. You threatened our colony. You came to take our people as slaves. You gave us 48 hours to surrender." His voice dropped lower, harder. "I am giving you 48 seconds. Turn your ships around. Leave this system. Never return." Vex's response came immediately, filled with panic and rage. "You cannot do this. The Dominion will crush you. We have conquered 100 worlds. We will." 40 seconds, Do-hwan interrupted. "This is an act of war. The other empires will unite against you." 30 seconds. On the surface of Mars, Governor Park Ji-soo watched the sky through the dome of her command center. Where there had been only enemy ships before, now human vessels filled her view. Ships bigger and more powerful than anything she had ever imagined. Ships that carried hope. She sank to her knees and cried. Commodore Baek Jin-ho led the fighter wings aboard the carrier, Storm of Bizan. His pilots were the best humanity had ever trained. Their reflexes enhanced by neural implants. Their ships controlled by thought as much as by hand. They had trained in secret for years, running simulations of battles exactly like this one. "All wings. Report ready," Jin-ho ordered. "Ready," came the response from 5,000 pilots. Captain Lee Hana commanded the destroyer Fury of Incheon. Her ship was small compared to the dreadnoughts, but it carried weapons that could cut through any shield the Dominion had ever built. Dark energy lances, the scientists called them. Hannah just called them equality. 10 seconds, Admiral Do-hwan announced. Vex screamed something in his own language. It might have been a curse. It might have been a prayer. His fleet started to move, turning toward the human ships, preparing to fight. 5 seconds. Commander Yuna looked at her father. "They are not leaving." Admiral Do-hwan's face was stone. He had hoped they would run. He had given them a chance to survive. But the Dominion had built their empire on blood and fire. They did not know how to surrender. "Time is up," he said quietly. He looked at his weapons officer. Commander Yunji met his eyes. She had trained for this moment since she was 16 years old. Her finger rested on the firing control. "Commander," Dohwan said, "show them what humanity is." Yunji smiled. "With pleasure, Admiral." She pressed the button. The Eternal Soul's main batteries fired. Beams of concentrated dark energy, each one carrying enough power to crack a planet, lanced across space toward the Dominion fleet. They were joined by weapons fire from 8,000 other ships. The black of space turned white with destruction. The first Dominion dreadnought hit by the barrage simply ceased to exist. Its shields, rated to withstand orbital bombardment, lasted less than a second. Its hull, thick enough to ignore asteroid impacts, vaporized instantly. At Nexus Prime, every species in the galaxy watched the feed from Mars. They saw the Dominion fleet, the terror of 100 worlds, begin to die. And they finally understood. Earth was not primitive. Earth was patient. The Battle of Mars lasted 9 minutes. Not because humanity struggled, not because the Dominion fought bravely. It lasted 9 minutes because that was how long it took for 500 alien warships to die. Captain Lihana pushed her destroyer Fury of Incheon forward into the chaos. Her ship was 2 kilometers of black steel and burning rage, moving through the Dominion fleet like a shark through fish. The enemy cruisers tried to hit her, but their weapons splashed harmlessly against quantum shields that bent reality itself. "Target the command ships first," Hana ordered. "Cut off the head." Her weapons officer, a young woman named Yun Sora, locked onto a Dominion battlecruiser twice their size. The enemy ship was trying to run, its engines burning bright as it turned away from the fight. "Fire," Hana said. A dark energy lance shot from the Fury's main gun. It crossed the distance between the ships in less than a heartbeat. When it hit the battlecruiser, the alien vessel simply came apart. The lance ignored its shields completely. It passed through armor like the armor was not there. The ship split in half, then quarters, then dissolved into a cloud of glowing debris. Across the battle zone, the same scene repeated thousands of times. Commodore Beak Jinho led his fighter wings through the heart of the Dominion formation. His pilots moved like dancers, spinning between enemy ships, dodging weapons fire that seemed slow compared to their enhanced reflexes. The neural links in their brains let them control their fighters with thought alone. Where a normal pilot might take a second to react, Jinho's people reacted in milliseconds. "Wing 7, break left," Jinho commanded. "Wing 12, cover the carrier group." His fighters released swarms of missiles. But these were not normal missiles. They were smart, guided by AI systems that could think faster than any organic mind. The missiles hunted their targets with perfect accuracy, finding weak points in enemy shields, exploiting tiny gaps in armor. A Dominion carrier tried to launch its own fighters. It managed to release perhaps 50 before missiles found its hangar bays and turned them into fireballs. The carrier tumbled through space, burning from the inside. "They are trying to retreat," Jinho's women reported. Jinho watched the tactical display. The surviving Dominion ships were indeed running, their engines pushed beyond safe limits as the surviving Dominion ships were indeed runnings. They tried to escape the nightmare they had stumbled into. "Let's them go." Admiral Dowan's voice came over the command channel. "We need witnesses." On the flagship Eternal Soul, Commander Kim Yuna coordinated the battle from the tactical center. Screens surrounded her, showing every ship, every missile, every beam of deadly light. She had trained for this her entire life, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality. Enemy dreadnought trying to power up its main cannon. A sensor officer called out. Yuna did not hesitate. Targeting solution to Battery Group 7. Priority fire. Before the Dominion dreadnought could complete its firing sequence, 3 human battlecruisers hit it simultaneously. Their dark energy lances converged on a single point, punching through shields, armor, and reactor core in one devastating blow. The dreadnought exploded in a flash bright enough to see from Mars's surface. High, Sovereign Vex watched his fleet die from his command throne. His crystal body had turned a pale gray color. All confidence drained away. His officers were screaming, crying, or simply frozen with terror. Some had abandoned their posts entirely. How? Vex whispered. How is this possible? A human ship, a destroyer that looked small but moved like a predator, appeared directly in front of his vessel. It was the Fury of Inshin. Captain Hannah's face appeared on his screen. "High Sovereign," she said. Her voice was cold and calm. "Your ship will power down all weapons and surrender. You have 10 seconds. I am High Sovereign of the Dominion Empire." Vex screamed. "I have conquered worlds. I have burned civilizations. You cannot. 5 seconds." Vex looked at his tactical display. His fleet was gone. 460 ships destroyed in minutes. The remaining 40 were running, damaged and desperate. He was alone. "I surrender," he said. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. Captain Hannah nodded. Smart choice. In orbit above Mars, the guns fell silent. Debris from the Dominion fleet drifted in a massive cloud, glowing with the heat of destruction. Human ships moved through the wreckage, searching for survivors, collecting escape pods. Governor Park Jisu stood on the observation deck of Mars Colony's main tower. Tears streamed down her face as she watched human ships fill the sky that had held only enemies an hour before. Behind her, the colonists were cheering, hugging each other, falling to their knees in gratitude. "We are safe," she whispered. "We are actually safe." Admiral Dohwan's voice came over the colony's communication system. "Governor Jisu, this is Admiral Kim Dohwan. Mars Colony is secure. The Dominion fleet has been neutralized." Jisu laughed and cried at the same time. "Admiral, I do not know how to thank you. We thought we were going to die. No human world will fall today, Governor. Not today. Not ever again." On the Eternal Soul, the bridge crew celebrated quietly. They had won. They had revealed humanity's true power. They had saved Mars, but Admiral Dohwan did not celebrate. He stood at the main window, looking at the distant stars. His face was thoughtful and hard. Commander Yuna approached her father. "We won," she said. "The Dominion is broken." "Here," Dohwan replied. "We broke their forward fleet. But the Dominion has thousands more ships at their homeworld. If we leave them alone, they will rebuild. They will return. They will never forget this humiliation, and they will take revenge on every human they can find." Yuna understood. This was not the end. This was just the beginning. "What do we do?" she asked. Dohwan turned to face his crew. His voice carried across the bridge. "We take the fleet to the Dominion homeworld. We show them what we showed their attack force. We make sure that they and everyone else in this galaxy understand one simple truth." He looked back at the stars. "Humanity is done hiding. Humanity is done being laughed at. And anyone who threatens our children will learn exactly what that means." Admiral Yoon My-rae commanded the Second Fleet from the battleship Spirit of Gwangju. Her ships had not fired a single shot during the battle. 4,000 vessels, held in reserve, waiting in case the first 8,000 were not enough. They had not been needed. Not today. "Admiral Dohwan," she reported over the command channel. "Second Fleet standing by. All ships ready for fold space jump." Dohwan nodded. "Set course for the Dominion homeworld. Formation Alpha. We leave in 1 hour." Across the solar system, 12,000 human warships began to move. The largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen, built in secret, hidden in darkness. now sailed openly toward the heart of an empire at Nexus Prime. The other galactic empires watched in stunned silence. They had laughed at humanity 6 months ago. They had called them primitives. They had dismissed them as irrelevant. Now they watched those primitives destroy a Dominion attack force in 9 minutes. Now they watched those primitives prepare to strike at the Dominion homeworld itself. And every single one of them began to wonder the same terrifying thought. If humanity was hiding this from the Dominion, what else might they be hiding from everyone else? The sky above the Dominion homeworld turned black with human ships. 12,000 vessels emerged from fold space, spreading across the heavens like a dark tide. The planet below, Vexor Prime, had never seen anything like it. For 10,000 years, the Dominion had been the ones who brought fleets to other worlds. They had never imagined this scene reversed. The people of Vexor Prime looked up and saw death hanging above their cities. Crystalline beings who had spent their lives feeling superior to every other species now stood in the streets and trembled. High Sovereign Vex was brought to the bridge of the eternal soul and energy chains. His crystal body was dull and cracked, damaged during his capture. He was forced to stand before Admiral Dohan, surrounded by human officers who looked at him with cold, unforgiving eyes. "Look at your world," Dohan said quietly. "Look at what hangs above it." Vex looked at the view screen. His homeworld filled half the image. The other half was filled with human warships. Dreadnoughts larger than any the Dominion had ever built. Siege platforms that could crack continents. Fighter swarms that numbered in the hundreds of thousands. "You could destroy us," Vex whispered. "With this fleet, you could burn every city on Vexor Prime." "Yes," Dohan agreed. "We could." Vex's crystal form flickered with what might have been hope. "Then you want something. Name your price. Territory? Resources? Slaves from our conquered worlds?" Admiral Dohan's expression did not change. "We do not want slaves. We do not want your territory. We are not you." He let the silence hang for a moment. Vex looked confused. In his experience, the strong always took what they wanted. That was how the galaxy worked. That was how it had always worked. "Then what do you want?" Vex asked. The door to the bridge opened. A woman walked in. She was tall and elegant, with silver hair pulled back in a simple style. Her name was Ambassador Song Heron, and she was Earth's true diplomatic voice to the galaxy. "I will take this from here, Admiral," she said. Dohan nodded and stepped aside. Heron approached the captured High Sovereign, her movements calm and dignified. She studied him for a moment, like a teacher looking at a student who had failed an important test. "High Sovereign Vex," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the bridge and broadcasting to every ship in both fleets. "The Dominion Empire attempted to enslave a human colony. Your forces threatened our children, our families, our future. In response, humanity has demonstrated that we are not the primitive species you believed us to be." Vex said nothing. What could he say? "However," Heron continued, "humanity did not build this fleet to become conquerors. We built it to survive. We built it to protect. And now that we have revealed our strength, we must also reveal our values." She stepped closer to Vex, her eyes meeting his. "The Dominion Empire will disarm. You will reduce your military to a defensive force only, monitored by observers from Earth and other neutral parties. You will release every enslaved species in your territory. Every single one. You will pay reparations to the worlds you have broken, the peoples you have stolen, the lives you have destroyed." Vex made a grinding sound. "And if we refuse?" Ambassador Heron did not blink. "Then Admiral Dohan will demonstrate what happens to those who refuse. But I promise you, High Sovereign, you do not want that demonstration." On the surface of Vexor Prime, the Dominion leadership watched the negotiation on their screens. They saw 12,000 human warships. They remembered the 9-minute massacre at Mars. They thought about their families, their cities, their children. The response came within the hour. The Dominion accepted all terms. At Nexus Prime, the Galactic Assembly reconvened for an emergency session. The hall was packed with representatives from every major empire. But this time, there was no laughter. This time, there was only nervous silence. Fleet Admiral Choi Sunwoo attended in person, along with Ambassador Harren. They stood on the same platform where Admiral Do-won had been mocked 6 months before. But the atmosphere could not have been more different. "Honored members of the Assembly," Harren said, "humanity requests formal membership again." The vote was unanimous. Earth was granted full membership with special advisory status. Several empires suggested that humanity should lead the Assembly entirely. Harren politely declined. "We are not here to rule," she explained. "We are here to ensure that what the Dominion tried to do to us never happens to any species again. Any empire that enslaves others will face the same response. Any fleet that threatens the innocent will meet the same fate. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The representatives looked at each other. They had spent centuries bullying weaker species, confident that no one could challenge them. Now there was someone who could challenge them. Someone with enough ships to enforce peace across the entire galaxy. Some of them felt fear. Some felt hope. All of them understood that the galaxy had changed forever. Back on the Eternal Soul, Admiral Do-won walked through the corridors of his ship. The battle was over. The diplomacy was finished. Humanity had emerged from the shadows and taken its place among the stars. He found Fleet Admiral Sunwoo in the observation lounge, looking out at the stars. Despite his age, Sunwoo's eyes were bright and clear. "We did it," Do-won said, standing beside his mentor. 400 years of hiding, and now everyone knows." Sunwoo nodded slowly. "The hard part starts now. Building is easy compared to maintaining. We have to show the galaxy that we are worthy of the power we have, that we will use it wisely. Do you think we will?" Sunwoo smiled. "I think humanity is capable of great cruelty and great kindness. We have shown our strength. Now we must show our wisdom." He turned to face Do-won. "That will be your generation's task, and your children's generation, and every generation after." Ensign Choi Soo-jin, Sunwoo's granddaughter, entered the lounge. She was young, barely 20, fresh from the academy. The battle at Mars had been her first real combat experience. She had performed well. "Grandfather," she said, "I have been thinking about something." "What is that?" Sunwoo asked. "Why did we hide for so long? We had the power to stop the Dominion years ago. We could have saved millions of lives on worlds they conquered while we stayed silent." It was a hard question. A fair question. Sunwoo considered it carefully before answering. "Because strength without patience is tyranny," he said. "If we had revealed ourselves too soon, the galaxy would have united against us out of fear. We needed to wait until we faced a clear threat, a clear aggressor, a situation where our response could not be misunderstood." He looked out at the stars again. "The Dominion attacked first. They came to enslave our people. Every species in the galaxy watched them throw the first punch, and every species watched us punch back." He paused. "Now they see us as defenders, not conquerors. That perception matters. It will determine whether we have allies or enemies for the next 1,000 years." Soo-jin thought about this. It made sense, but it still felt cold. Still felt calculating. "What about the people who died while we waited?" she asked softly. Sunwoo's face showed pain. "Real pain. They haunt me," he admitted. "Every night. Every morning. Leadership means making impossible choices. It means carrying guilt that never goes away. He put a hand on his granddaughter's shoulder. Remember that guilt, Sujin. Let it guide you. The moment you stop feeling the weight of your decisions is the moment you become what we fought against. The eternal soul turned toward home. Behind it, the human fleet followed in perfect formation. 12,000 ships that had changed history. On Earth, celebrations erupted in every city. People who had lived their whole lives thinking they were alone and small in the universe now knew the truth. They were part of something vast and powerful. Something that had protected them in secret for generations. On Mars, Governor Park Jizu placed a memorial stone in the main plaza. It would carry the names of every human who had served in the hidden fleet, who had kept a secret, who had waited in silence for the day when they would be needed. At Nexus Prime, the other empires began to change their behavior. Slavery operations quietly shut down. Aggressive expansion stopped. Species that had bullied their neighbors for centuries suddenly became very polite. No one wanted to be the next. Dominion. Commander Kim Yuna found her father on the observation deck as Earth grew larger in the view screen. He looked tired but satisfied. What happens now? She asked. Admiral Dohwan smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him in months. Now we go home. We rest. We rebuild. He looked at his daughter. And we try to be the civilization we always hoped we could be. Not conquerors. Not tyrants. Just humans. Doing our best in a vast and complicated universe. The fleet entered Earth orbit as the sun rose over the Pacific Ocean. Golden light washed across 12,000 ships, making them shine like stars themselves. Humanity had hidden in the shadows. Humanity had waited with patience. And when the time came, humanity had risen. The galaxy would never forget.